It's spooky season, and we are here to do some nerding out. Hello, I am the King, and Halloween time. Last time I did a ranking video, people really seemed to like it, so I decided, why not do it again? This time I'm gonna be doing some movies, because as someone who loves horror and loves everything Friday the 13th, there is no better person for that subject matter. Every movie, worst to best. And let's be honest, these are all opinionated. There is no factually correct answer. It's all a source of entertainment. But because I am the king, what I say goes. So this is just the correct order. Coming in at number 1, or the worst possible movie on the list, is without a doubt Part 8, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. There is, from 1989, by the way, boring describes this film. Of course, everyone knows the joke. It should be called Jason Takes the Cruise Ship because he spends almost the entirety of the movie just on a boat killing people. But that's not even the only thing. Just the bad marketing isn't enough. The time he spends in New York itself, which is only like 1 or 2 shots, and then they just like use some sets, is cool, but it does nothing to save this movie. The leads are super bland. I can't even remember the name of the main girl. And she has this weird backstory with Jason where she apparently got thrown into the water when she was a little girl and he was under there not drowning yet and he tried to pull her down. It makes no sense. And she's like haunted by his ghost for some reason. Jason, although played expertly by Kane Hodder as always, looks terrible. I do not like this design. It gets even worse when the mask comes off and they use this weird Play-Doh abomination. We had better effects in previous older years for these movies and they give us this crap. Yeah, there is little redeemable. Most of the characters aren't very memorable. There is one notable part, and that is Julius's fight, him boxing Jason on the rooftop and then getting his head punched off. That is great. That is a great moment. That is very Friday the 13th, and I appreciate that. That is the only thing I appreciate. This is the one movie I do not go back and rewatch unless I would have to, like for this case. Next up on the worst side of the list, Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning from 1985. I know some people have a soft spot for this one, and I'm not going to be so petty as to say, well, Jason's not in it, so I don't like it. That's not what this is about. It is just not a very exciting movie for me. I can enjoy a good character actor, but I don't really enjoy the setting of all the, the home for, kids with, like, special needs. The neighbors are funny, I guess, but I don't know. This is definitely much more of a softcore porn than a Friday the 13th movie. I like my slashers. I don't mind some bahoobies in the shots, but I don't know. The fact that Jason's not in it and they have to keep it all hidden again means you don't get to see the killer walking around. You just see a hand and people get stabbed and then that's it. There's not a lot of really great memorable kills. The one I only like is, I believe, Violet in her bedroom when she's listening to There's No Life Behind the Guy's Eyes, because I just like the song, but the motivation for who the killer is, the mystery of who the killer is, it's either Tommy Jarvis or it's some random guy, and it's, of course, some random guy. Nobody was happy with this movie when it came out, and I know it has its following, but I just can't get behind it. It doesn't entertain me that much. All right, you want to know why the word controversial is in this title? Coming up next, in the third spot, Friday the 13th, 1980. Yes, there is nothing added to that title because I am talking about the original. I'm going to be honest, the original is not that memorable. Pamela Voorhees is a fine villain and all, but this is one of the cheesiest movies, if you ask me, in the series. The characters are quite bland. They also kill a snake for real, which just doesn't help, and that's not the reason it's this low. This movie bores me. It's very slow. Takes a long time to get going. It only has a couple really memorable moments, and even the final showdown between Pamela and Alice is not very exciting. I know it's the original. I know it's what started it, but keep in mind, this first one is basically just a Halloween ripoff. It was just one of the best ones at the time, but so many of these sequels take the formula and do it so much better or much more interesting. I don't have any desire to really watch this one that much, which is a shame. It's the original, but it is just so bland compared to some of these others. It's not bad, like unforgivably bad, like the ones that come before it, but it doesn't do anything for me. Okay, I see you biting your nails waiting for me to talk about this one. Next up is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday from 1993. Yes, you were probably hoping this would be at the bottom of the list, but I find this movie more entertaining. Is it good? No, it is not a good movie. Not by a long shot. It is not made well. The plot makes barely any sense. Most of the characters are quite bizarre. And I agree that Jason should be in it more. For a movie that is basically supposed to be his final movie, he's barely even in it. He's in the beginning, he gets blown up in a really cool scene I actually like, where you have the very beautiful woman getting about to take a shower, and he starts chasing her, no big deal, and it turns out she's like an FBI agent that leads him into a trap that he gets shot up by the police, finally catching on to that this guy exists and just blowing him away. Cool start. What we get after that is this weird body snatcher idea of Jason entering the bodies of other people, trying to find his long-lost family members that he apparently has, so he can absorb them and become himself again. It's really weird. I appreciate it for being something different, rather than just summer camp, machete man, hockey mask, all that. But it's, the actors' performances as Jason vary from bad to, they're trying. One of the characters that is basically possessed by Jason talks, which means Jason, who doesn't talk ever, is talking, which I never understood that. Creighton Duke is very weird. I kind of like the idea of a bounty hunter character, but he's not very helpful. Upsides, there are some great effects, some horrific to watch kills that are really well done. The music's pretty good. It's one of the better Friday themes, I think. And at least it gives you that satisfying conclusion of Freddy's hand coming out and dragging Jason's mask away, setting up for the eventual Versus movie coming down the line. So, does it do some interesting things? Does it have some fun moments? Yes, but overall, it can be forgettable. I'm just more likely to watch this one because it's a little different than some of the other ones. Up next, Friday the 13th, Part 3D. 1982. Oh boy, the 3D bug really bit this one in the ass, didn't it? Alright. This movie is kind of boring too. It has its moments. But a lot of this is just Jason hiding in the barn with nothing covering his face, so you don't get to see much of him stabbing people who enter the barn until finally he finds the hockey mask. That's when things start getting a little going. We have a great Jason performance, understandably so. I like the big hulking Jason that's running around after people. Chris, as the main character, she's okay. She's at least like someone who fights back, which I appreciate. I don't really like the supposed backstory that she met Jason before a few years ago. He attacked her, and then she blacks out, and since she doesn't die, it insinuates that he R-words her, because Jason is not like that, and it doesn't say that's what happened, but it hints at it. I don't like that. The acting in this one is one of the weakest for these people, and it's a cheesy slasher film. You don't expect the greatest of acting, but some of these people are really phoning it in. And the 3D stuff is passable. 3D was popular at the time, so they're just literally shoving everything in your face in the movie to give it that 3D effect. And since I don't like 3D movies, and I feel this is a movie you don't need to watch in 3D, there's a handful of decent effects, but half the time it's just stuff flying at the camera that there's no point in it other than, ooh, 3D. Coming up next is Friday the 13th, the remake from 2009. This movie is all over the spectrum for people, it seems like. Some people say it's terrible because it completely derives away from who Jason is as a character and what these movies are about. Others say it's great because it's a lot more realistic and newer and fresher and all this stuff. I sit pretty much in the middle here. It's dead center right now. It's, I think, taking up 7th place currently. I don't know. It doesn't do a lot for me. I like trap setting, running around, brutal as all can be Jason. I think that's great. He's a little different than the kind of character we're used to, and there's actually people on YouTube who talk about why the remake Jason doesn't really resemble the actual version of Jason Voorhees, but regardless. The whole confusing some young woman as his mom and keeping her doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but in terms of characters, we have no memorable characters here. I like Sam Winchester, but Clay is nothing in this movie. I respect the guy. He's a brother looking for a sister trying to protect her. That's all you got. He's a decent human being. And then you got all the other characters who, there's like one, I think Gina is her name. She's nice and a considerate person, then everyone else sucks. They're either horny, stupid, or mean, or any combination of those. I do agree with people when they say this is the most, anti-woman Friday the 13th. Slasher films are known. the bad guy uses a weapon that is a penetrative thing, and the women get naked, and then they get killed, and, you know, I care more about the horror aspects than all the boobalicious stuff, but just pretty much every woman in this movie either wants to be getting donged, or men are just hinting at them to give them some dong, and there is no other substance to that. Like, at least some of these other movies have these, like, wacky, memorable characters. Here, everybody just sucks. You know, the weed bros who are smoking it up, you know, they're funny at least. They're mildly memorable. They have some funny lines and stuff, but there's just a lot of boobs, a lot of bad decisions, a lot of obnoxious dialogue. At least when Jason's on the scene, you know, and they're exploring his little bunker underground and stuff, and he's running at people, setting bear traps and stuff, that can be kind of exciting. There's a few good shots, some good cinematography. It has its eerie moments, but it's just, I don't know, it's not as exciting for me as some of these older movies. Coming up next, in number 6 spot, Friday the 13th, Part 7, New Blood, from 1988. This is, as it was supposed to be, Carrie versus Jason. They couldn't get the rights to it, and so they just changed it to Tina, who basically has the same abilities as Carrie. She, you know, she can, you know, control things with her mind and all that, telekinesis. I always get torn on this movie. First of all, one of the best Jason designs. He is eaten away at, like his mask is cracked and you see his teeth, you see his spine hanging out, he's all like moldy flesh and bone, especially when the mask comes off and you see that horrific face. They had these great effects in this movie, and then the movie right after they give us a terrible face effect, but he looks great visual design. He is played for the first time in the series by Kane Hodder, who just has this, even though he's a smaller person in real life, so he makes Jason look a little smaller perhaps, he makes this character larger than life. The breathing, the intensity, the way he moves, the way he gets thrown around, because he's a stuntman, so he takes a lot of the hits himself. He's a very fun interpretation of Jason, for sure. And I like Tina as a character. This poor girl has these powers. They are triggered by these emotional, you know, reactions she has, which she, of course, would be very emotional because she used her powers to take out her own father, accidentally. She has a horrible psychiatrist who has no interest in actually helping her. He just wants to torment her and get her to create more reactions. And not only does she end up resurrecting Jason, but he then goes on a killing spree, like always. A lot of the kills were horrifically toned down because we can't have nice things in movies because, violence in fiction reflects violence in real life. BS. People make bad choices. That's on them, not the media that we consume, at least fictional media. But there's a couple of good moments, specifically the sleeping bag kill, which, you know, had him swing the sleeping bag against the tree with the girl in it multiple times, and in the movie, he only does it once, and I think he only needs to do it once. It shows his strength. When Tina actually decides to stop running away and fight back, her showdown with Jason is one of the most exciting final girl versus slasher villains in the whole series, if not many of slasher films. Watching her whoop his butt, and he just keeps coming back for more is great. I like Nick. He's a fun, you know, love interest for the main girl. He's a good guy. Some of the other characters are fine, you know. It's mostly satisfying just to see the really mean one mostly get her face stabbed by an axe. I'm a horrible person. Speaking of fighting Jason, in the number 5 spot, people probably not gonna like this one either, Freddy vs. Jason from 2003. It's a fun movie, man. I mean, at the time, I mean, nowadays we have, you know, Godzilla and King Kong and all you know, and all these Marvel movies and stuff, but, you know, back in the early 2000s and before that, there weren't a lot of, you know, iconic franchise or whatever, pushing them together. You know, now we got Alien versus Predator and stuff, but back then all you had were like the Universal monsters, and it's because they were all Universal. They could be in the same movie together. So when New Line Cinema actually acquired the rights to Friday the 13th, and they already had Nightmare on Elm Street, people were waiting a really long time, and to everybody's shock, we finally got a movie where Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees take each other on. And it's great. Are the killer characters very memorable? No. Do they need to be? I don't think so. I think the plot is actually quite reasonable, of Freddy being stuck in hell with nobody remembering him, and he's able to use basically the last of his power to resurrect Jason and trick him into going to Elm Street to punish the naughty children. And so it brings back the memory of who Freddy is, and he's able to start attacking people in their dreams again. Great. It's simple, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. Normally, you know, versus plots can be all like, you know. These two fight each other basically at 3 different points, and when they're fighting, it's the best part of the movie, especially the last, like, 25 minutes or so. The kid's trying to wake up Jason, who is stuck in a Freddy nightmare, and use him to fight Freddy after they bring him into the real world. When these two go at it, we got Robert Englund. Sadly, it's not Kane Hodder, but the guy who gives the performance for Jason in this movie's okay. He's just a big, towering guy. He does well enough. But when they start fighting, it is brutal. It is awesome. Like I said, the rest of the characters we're following around, they're okay. The plot's better. The characters are probably the weakest aspect of the movie, but I think it's a good, fun ride. And just seeing them fight, it's great. It's everything you would want in a versus movie, if you ask me. Coming up in the number 4 slot. Now we're looking at, like, the actual good movies in the franchise. We went from really bad to, yeah, they're all right. Now, like, these top 4 are, like, what I consider, they're either good for how entertaining they are or good for the quality that they are. Because you'll realize quickly where I'm going with this. So, number 4 spot, Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981. This is the first movie again, but done way better. Much more memorable characters, a way better final girl, and, in my opinion, a more scary killer, because this is Jason's first appearance. He's wearing a bag, he's wearing overalls, and it also, I appreciate how this one shows how clumsy he is. You know, he's standing on a chair and it breaks, he breaks his weapon, he gets outsmarted very easily, he doesn't seem as strong, and it really, like, now that we have this entire franchise, it almost makes sense that, like, he'd be very foolish and very simplistic in his first spree, and then we see him get way better at what he does down the line in these other movies. Definitely, this is way better. You know, I really enjoy some of these side characters here. You know, we got Paul Holt. He seems like a nice camp leader. This actually feels like counselors trying to run the camp and get ready for the kids to show up and all that. So some of the others don't really feel like that, or it's just people vacationing and stuff, but this one really does feel like, you know, Camp Crystal Lake, big deal kind of thing. I like the relationship between Mark and Vicky. I think, you know, their little flirtations with each other is really sweet, and they become more memorable characters to me. Also, guy in a wheelchair taking a cleaver to the face and falling down some stairs, very memorable kill. Ginny is quite possibly the best lead in all the Friday the 13th movies. She's, you know, she's not some, you know, complete pure-hearted person, but she is a good person. She is smart. She is a warrior, you know, constantly running away. She spends a long time running away from Jason in this movie. And then, of course, earlier in the movie, we understand she is, you know, understands child psychology, and she uses that later in the film. And one of the best ways to take down Jason by convincing him she is his mom by wearing the sweater and everything and getting the better of him there. Way better than the first one. I'd rather just watch this one than watch the original. Coming up in the number 3 spot. Don't turn off the video yet. You are seeing this correctly. Jason X from 2001. Okay, King, I thought you said these were the good movies. It is good. Is it made well? No. This is the Jason in Space movie. Yes. This was because they were struggling to make Freddy vs. Jason after the Final Friday. They basically made this movie to buy more time, because if you don't, you know, when you hold the rights to a film, if you don't use it for like 10 years, it kind of just like, the studio can just like lose it. So they made this movie. It's really fun, and because it's really bad. I mean, the budget is nowhere near enough to make this look like a realistic space station or make these effects look great. The CGI in this film is atrocious, but this movie, at the very least, to its credit, knows what it is. These characters from the future are a bit weird, you know, they lose limbs and go, oh, well, we have tech that can fix that. There are the most sarcastic people imaginable. There are characters in situations where they're about to die and they feel it's a good time to make a goofy quip. This movie knows it is a goofball fest, and I appreciate it for accepting itself. Some of the kills are kind of fun. We get one of the most iconic where the girl gets her face shoved in liquid nitrogen and then just smashed across the countertop. Very good. Kane Hodder again does great with Jason. Not the best Jason look, but I even love how, like, confused Jason is at times, because he's like, he wakes up on the ship, and at that point he's just like, well, here's a weapon and I'm on this ship, I don't know what's going on, but let's keep killing people. But then, you know, he sees the aliens in like the video game simulation, has no idea what's going on there. He ends up getting absolutely butchered by an android, and he's confused why he can't hurt her, which I just think is funny. I love that the person from the past who gets frozen alongside Jason and wakes up in the future, Rowan, she's like the only reasonable, level-headed person, and I don't mind her. She's not the most interesting, but like amongst all these like wackadoos in the future, like, oh, we're safe, it's the future, we can beat anything, and she's like, you don't understand what you're dealing with. And I love Uber Jason. I don't even like calling him Uber Jason. I love calling him Mecha Jason because that's what he frickin' looks like. Jason gets absolutely blown away by the android and he falls on the machine and it repairs him. And because there's not enough of him left to repair, the nanobots use synthetic material from the ship and makes him basically half robotic and armored at this point. He looks awesome. He is freaky. Is it ridiculous? Yes, but he's just smashing through fools at that point. I also really appreciate the little simulation of taking him to Camp Crystal Lake as a distraction. Wacky characters, wacky environment, crazy space adventure, but anytime your horror franchise that shouldn't be in space, like that isn't an Alien or Predator film, it's just an on-Earth kind of film, and then it goes to space, it's not going to be good, but at least this movie went in saying, this isn't going to be good, but we're going to make sure you have a damn good time while you're watching it, and I am entertained. All right, we're down to the final 2 spots, the top 2, the 2 best. These 2 are... This is the most predictable part of the list. Everyone could pretty much agree these are the best 2 films in the series. It's just a matter of what you prefer more. My second place spot, with no digs at it whatsoever, is Friday the 13th Part 4, The Final Chapter. The fact that we've had 12 of these proves that that was a lie, but this movie was in 1984, and at the time it was supposed to be the final chapter, so much so that Tom Savini, one of the greatest makeup effects artists of all time, who worked on the original film, came back to do this one after they asked him to, as long as he got to kill Jason off, which is exactly what he gets to do, actually. It just wouldn't stick, because money. But by far, this is probably the best traditional Friday the 13th. This has elements of all 3 of the movies that came before it. And it's done up way better. Ted White, who was, I believe, 58 when he played Jason in this film, does a great job being the hulking brute that is running and chasing after people. To me, this might just be the scariest Jason. I mean, he's literally got a cleaved hole in his head from an axe swing, and he is crushing faces against bathroom stalls. He is swinging axes, throwing hammers. This dude is brutal. He is intense. Absolutely just a great performance, one of the best Jason performances. Some of the best characters. You have the dichotomy of the Jarvis family, which is a mom and her 2 kids, one being Tommy Jarvis, played by Corey Feldman, him, his older sister, their fluffy golden dog, Gordon, I believe is his name. You have this pleasant family. They get along really well. They just live out here, and they rent out this big house next door where you get, the 8 or so rowdy, partying, horned up teenagers for all the Jason fun. And you really worry about like the family because they're going to be victims in all this too. But then you also have all the people who are just there to kind of add to the body count. But even most of these kids, they still meet kind of the stereotypes, but they are really memorable. You got the twins who are just quite beautiful, and all the men are just like, oh, twins, You have the one, you have the one like naughty couple that they get axed off pretty quickly, but you have the one like really pleasant couple who, the one girl's all kind of shy, but she is into her boyfriend. And I love that, like, during their conversations, like, she hints at wanting to do some intimate stuff with him, and at no point is he like, yeah, he's not like that. He just kind of, like, wants to be sure, like, what she's talking about, like, he's really respectful. Like, they're really nice. I actually kind of feel bad for them when they get taken out, which is rare in these movies, but, like, they're just side characters that I find myself caring about. This has the largest amount of, like, iconic kills, if you ask me. I mean, you have the razor saw through the neck with the neck just, like, getting twisted around by the coroner's head. You have the window where Jason just bashes through the window, throws the girl out the window and crashes. You have probably the best shadow kill ever, where just a flash of lightning, you see the girl's shadow and then Jason like stabbing her through in just silhouette. I think that's really cool. And my personal favorite kill in all of Friday the 13th is Crispin Glover's kill, where he is begging for Ted to tell him where the dang corkscrew is, and then Jason smashes that into his hand and then cleaver to the face. It is just fun irony that I can appreciate in a slasher film like this. And then, of course, you have the end where Jason himself, after taking out all the people that didn't deserve it, but, you know he's going after them, he's then going after the siblings, Trish and Tommy. They are doing their best to protect one another to the point where Tommy gets to manipulate Jason well enough and then cleave him straight into the face that he slides down. I mean, Jason's own death is quite iconic, and this does actually kill Jason off for the time being. And it sets up, trauma in the siblings and Tommy Jarvis possibly being a killer in the future, which they would go back on. But a great film from start to finish, quite eerie, and it just has the best elements. It is a great slasher film. And in the number one spot, which, at this point is just personal preference, is by far my favorite Friday the 13th movie, Part 6, Jason Lives, from 1986. As by the title you can tell, they kill off Jason, they try doing something different, it doesn't go so well, and so they immediately bring Jason back. But this is the start of the zombie Jason, where he resurrects, he is completely undead, he is far more powerful physically, and far more unrelenting. Tommy Jarvis, in my personal favorite performance of Tommy Jarvis, comes back with one of the dumbest decisions in horror movie history, wanting to... Even though Jason is long gone, the only way to save him from his trauma is to make sure Jason can never come back. He goes to burn the corpse, and which that's fine and all. In a moment of trauma, he ends up stabbing Jason with a metal pole over and over. The pole gets struck by lightning, and because Jason has some dark magic in him anyway, he gets Frankenstein-style resurrected, and he goes on another spree yet again. This was Scream before Scream existed. This movie definitely has some good horror elements, but it has a lot more self-awareness and some comedy to it, which at the 6th film in the franchise I think you need, and that's why I really appreciate it. It still has some definitely eerie moments and some good horror and some good kills, but there's a lot of good jokes. Even in the beginning, Tommy's buddy says, "Dude, you're gonna make my heart come out," he says, like, "I'm gonna have my heart fall out of my chest," and then Jason punches his heart through his body. So some irony there. Even the gravedigger, when he looks directly at the camera and says, "Some folks have some sick ideas of entertainment," obviously talking to us for watching a slasher film. There's no bahoobies in this film, and personally, I am fine with that. I'm just here for the scares. I think that's part of the joke, too. There's a great triple decapitation. One guy gets folded backwards. There's some memorable kills. I love the shot of Jason not collapsing the RV and standing on top of the burning wreckage. Other than the yellow gloves, I think Jason looks good. I think he has a fairly good performance here, as well as just this tall, unmoving presence that just kind of lumbers through. We also get to see the most of Jason in this film compared to just about any other. We basically follow him for most of it, rather than just... We follow the characters, so, the human living characters as well, but we follow him a lot too, moving through the woods, actually stalking these people. It's not just from his POV. We see him showing up and attacking these people. I like Tommy. I like Megan, or how the deputy says, "Megan." I like their dynamic. Tommy is just trying his best to get people to believe him. No one believes him, and he's going to do whatever it takes to stop Jason. He's a little afraid still, but he's going to, he's trying to deal with the sheriff, who's just trying to, understandably, protect the town from psychosis like that. He's just incorrect at the time. I really like Megan. I think she is maybe not the most interesting in terms of final girl. I mean, technically Tommy is the main character here, but in terms of, final girl status, she's not maybe the most interest, but I like how she is... Despite Tommy seeming like he is insane, she is just completely enthralled with him, and after she does start to kind of believe him, she is all in on helping him out and realizing he's just, a guy struggling anyway. I love seeing the police try to take him down, and, they don't know what they're dealing with. There's a great final showdown between Tommy and Jason in the water, where he tries to send him back where he belongs. There's fire on the lake, and they're fighting and everything. Very funny, very memorable, very entertaining from start to finish. There's that great song at the end, "He's Back," the man behind the mask, that Jason technically starred in the music video of. Just such a fun movie. One of my favorite horror movies of all time, Friday Part 6. Friday the 13th is a great franchise. I'm hoping now that the lawsuits are over, we'll get at least one more film, so we have 13 in the franchise. But Jason Voorhees, he's my favorite slasher villain. He's got a lot of fun movies. Even the weaker ones are still pretty entertaining. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, if, you agree with my placements, and if not, where you would put certain movies. And enjoy the spooky season. Until next time, bye-bye!